everybody, it's Kaylani and welcome back to my book corner. Today we are going to be talking about the books that I have read so far in May. I have two readathons going on, so I have the Asian readathon and the Believe-a-thon going on. So I am going to be having a lot of books for those two things. But we will go ahead and jump right into it. So for Believe-a-thon, you're technically supposed to read your books in a certain order, but I kind of got into like a classics middle grade type reading vibe at the beginning of the month, so I actually went ahead and jumped into Believe-a-thon a little bit early and a little bit out of order, but I'm still following the prompts, so there is that. But I started with Treasure Island, and I like this book a lot. I love Treasure Planet. It's one of my favorite Disney movies, so I was more surprised by how much of this book actually followed Treasure Planet. I think I still like Treasure Planet more than Treasure Island just because I like the spacey aspects, and I love Ben as a little robot. And so, I don't know, like I really enjoyed this, and I also listened to it on Audible, so I read the physical copy and the Audible. One of the free things this month was this on audio, and it is almost a full cast, so I was able to experience it both ways, and I enjoyed it both ways. But like I said, I still think I like the movie more, only because of the spacey vibes, but it was still a pretty good read. The next book that I read is good old Crazy Rich Asians, and this is obviously this is a story about an Asian family, or an Asian couple I guess, and one of them is from Singapore and the other one is from the US, they think, but it's about them falling in love and then them going home, and the main girl Rachel finds out that Nick's family is super wealthy, like stupid, cannot even physically imagine the amount of zeros wealthy, and kind of the struggles between his family and coming to terms with that. So I love this book, and they also go through a lot of other characters in this book. So we have Astrid, who is Nick's cousin. We have Kitty Pong, who is dating one of Nick's cousins. And then we have Nick's parents and his ama, which is his grandma. And there's so many characters, and the movie is really good. And I really enjoyed the movie, and it's obviously what prompted me to read the book. But I think the book describes the characters a lot more, and you get a ton more character story in this than you do in the movies. So if you really like the movies and you like to read, I highly recommend you pick up the book because you'll get a lot more of other characters like Astrid. The next book that I read this month was The Wizard of Oz, and I've decided I only like The Wizard of Oz because of the songs. This book was so boring. Did not enjoy. I still like it as a classic, but the story, it had differences, like the shoes were a different color, and some of the Scarecrow's story was a little bit different, and the Tin Man's story was a little bit different. The Tin Man story was terrifying because he pretty much cut himself all up and just made parts for himself, which is not in the movie. But I mean, did I enjoy it? I'd rather watch the movie. I mean, as a classic, I don't know. I don't think this is a children's book either. It's kind of very morbid. Especially, I guess, the Tin Man story, I think, is pretty morbid. So, I don't know. I don't know about this one, but I read it, and it's done. So, we're moving on. The next book I read was China Rich Girlfriend, which is the follow-up book to Crazy Rich Asians. And in this, we follow Nick and Rachel again. There's more Astrid story. I'm not going to go into this one because obvious spoilers with being the second book, but I think that the character depth gets so much better in these books with every book you read. Crazy Rich Asians is a 4-star read for me. It is my least favorite in the series though. So that's how I'm saying. They all get better one after the other. This one's probably a 4.5, and then I love the last one the most. I hope that I get a chance to read all 3 this month because I am loving it and I'm enjoying it so much. And one of my favorite characters is Kitty Pong, and in the movie Kitty is like just like this tramp, and I guess kind of in the first book that's kind of how she's portrayed, but she is like killing it. I love Kitty Pong. So, or Kitty, whatever her last name ends up being, but Kitty Pong in the first book and in the movie. And Astrid, her storyline is so much different in the books over the movie, and I think it shows her as more of a powerful person than in the movie, because in the movie she kind of, it seems like she just gets trampled on by Michael, but in the books she knows what she's doing. So highly recommend. Also read this book this month. You should read it too. The next book I read was Of Curses and Kisses by Shandia Menon. I have never read anything by this author before, and I hope that her full contemporaries are better than this one. So this is a Beauty and the Beast retelling that I did not like. We have our main character who... Jaya, is that her name? I don't know. I called her Jay the whole time I read this because I didn't know how to pronounce her name. And then Gray is the Beast, obviously. And honestly, I read the first 100 pages and then I skipped to the last chapter, and that was my story for me. It didn't feel like I missed any part of the book by doing that, so I'm not entirely sure how crucial the middle of this book is. Like I said, did not enjoy it, would not recommend, and I just hope that her contemporaries are better than this, because this is like a contemporary with a slight magical twist, but very slight magical, and it was very predictable. It happens at a prep school, and maybe the prep school is what threw me off because it's just very high school this book is. So there is that one that I read, and this is probably one of my least favorite books I've read so far this month, and I think I liked all of the books I read last month more than this book. So unfortunately, I'm gonna have to pass. So, and the last Believe-a-thon book I read so far this month is Charlotte's Web, and it is a classic about a pig who is not that extraordinary, who everyone thinks is extraordinary. I didn't realize how much Fern was a part of the story until I read it, obviously. And I don't know, this was a good book. It reminded me of just like the movie, and I think the worst part, or like the part that made me like the saddest, definitely was when Charlotte died. And it was so sad. I'm just gonna read you the part. It says, "The next day, as the Ferris wheel was being taken apart and the racehorses were being loaded into the vans and the entertainers were packing up their belongings and driving away in their trailers, Charlotte died. The fairgrounds were soon deserted. The sheds and buildings were empty and forlorn. The infield was littered with bottles and trash. Nobody of the hundreds of people that had visited the fair knew that a gray spider had played the most important part of all. No one was with her when she died." Traumatizing. That's traumatizing. I don't know. I mean, I like the book, but that's so sad. But yeah, so that is another one I read this month. There's not a lot to talk about with this one because I feel like everyone knows the story. So there is that. And the last book I read this month was actually an audiobook, and it was The Henna Artist. And I think this is going to be one of those books where as time goes on, I'll feel more feelings toward the book, because right now it was definitely a 3-star. I didn't hate it. I didn't love it. There were definitely parts I did really enjoy, and I liked a lot of the messages it was, I feel like, trying to portray. And I like the idea of this modern type woman in a society that is very not modern. I don't know. I found myself halfway through it going, man, I really cannot wait for this book to be over. But I don't know if that was because I was listening to the audio and so I wasn't experiencing it. I don't know. But I'm definitely, like, I finished it yesterday. and I gave myself a day to really like understand my feelings on it or start to understand my feelings on it, and I don't know. I go back and forth for sure. Because like I said, I liked a lot of parts of it. I didn't like some parts of it. But I do think it will grow on me as I keep thinking about it, and how it will get more powerful with thought, if that makes sense. But that is all of the books I read so far this month. So I think we have 7 books. I think I read 7 books so far. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yep, 7 books. And I still have the rest of the month to go. And I still have quite a few more books to read for my TBR this month. But I have faith. So there is that. But I hope to see you next time. Like, comment, subscribe, and do all that good stuff. And we will see you next time. Bye!